Hello, aspirants. Welcome to the Hi-Fi of the Day, Daily Current Affairs by Alchemy IAS Institute. I am Suhas. We are going to discuss the 5 important topic from news which will be relevant for your UPSC civil service preparation. How Vivekananda introduced America to Hinduism. Why it is news on September 11, in 1893. Swami Vivekananda addressed the Parliament of World's Religion at Chicago. And his opening word was Sisters and Brothers of America, that God received a 2-minute standing ovation. It's a very famous usage at brothers and sisters. The speech marked India's first moral presence in the global stage. What was the background of this Chicago's speech? Or it's like that Vivekananda's address, why it got this much relevance? The late 19th century West, it was colonial dominance, industrialization, was there rise of Darwinism, like social Darwinism, that survival of the fittest, which justifies the social inequality, that fit as human being will survive more. This justification of social inequality and spiritual crisis were there. And US intellectual climate was like the transcendentalist, like who was a uh, like Emerson has already prepared the ground for Vedanta. And the parliament was the first major global interfaith dialogue promoting the religious pluralism, that accepting the diverse religious ideology of the world. What was Vivekananda's message? He advocated universal tolerance, the acceptance of all religion as true, accepting the true or truth of all religion, the strong condemnation of the sectarianism, that separatism, or is like supporting the sectoral movement or supporting the sect or division on the basis of sect, then bigotry and fanatism, like the religious sentiments, or like the radical religious sentiments, and hoped the parliament would become a death knell of fanatism, that radical religions. They presented the Vedanta philosophy. What do you mean by Vedanta? Vedanta is a end or the conclusion of Veda, that knowledge of the conclusive knowledge of Vedanta. Radical non-dualism as a inclusive and universal religion. That is a Vivekananda's message. How it impacted in America. This speech gained immediate recognition and he got invited to lecture widely for 2 years across the United States. That means recognition got. And it established Vedanta Society. Some are still active. And the lecturer at Harvard admired American openness to view different idea, pluralism. And the popularized yoga and meditation today, global wellness practices are worldwide famous because of this. And the legacy is still enduring. The enduring legacy is like the projected Hinduism as a rational, universal, and spiritually rich, countering colonial stereotypes. It's a new way of it. Then influenced major Western thinkers and even popular cultures also, and strengthened India's cultural identity and laid foundation for soft power diplomacy, which will be relevant for today's world, that uh, that is actually like influencing other nations through our soft powers, like the culture. This yoga is a part of soft power diplomacy. Another news, Himachal Pradesh declared fully literate. Got fully literate. What do you mean by what is full literacy? The Ministry of Education defined in 2024 that it's an ability to read, write, compute with a comprehension plus life skill. That means like digital literacy, financial literacy, etc. That is literacy. And a state or UT is considered fully literate when achieves 95% literacy rate. And the certification is done through the functional literacy and numeracy assessment test under the ULLAS program. What is this ULLAS program? Understanding lifelong learning for all in society. Ullas means understanding lifelong learning for all in society. The target is 100% literacy by 2013. It's aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals plus National Education Policy of 2020. And for adult 15 plus years who missed the formal schooling, and the content is reading, writing, and numeracy up to class 3 level, and practice skills using money, time, calendar, digital transactions, and the delivery via mobile app or the community volunteer or students. The certification will be by National Institute of Open Schooling after the passing this LNAT test, that functional literacy and numeracy assessment test. So Himachal's achievement become the 5th state or UT to get the fully literal tag after Goa, Ladakh, Mizoram, and Tripura. And literacy rate is 99.3. Goa is 99.7, Mizoram 98.8, and Tripura 95.6, and Ladakh is 97%. And 2011 census literacy 7 plus years, Himachal has an 82.8%. India's average literacy is 74%. You have to note it down. So how the state is getting qualified, how they achieved? They conducted door-to-door surveys to identify literacy adult and provided training under ULDA's program, ULDA scheme, and learners cleared the FLNAT test and stayed with the already high literacy and small population achieve the status faster because not much population is there. It is easy to literate or educate a smaller number of people. Another news is like paracetamol use during the pregnancy, and is there any connection with the autism risk during the pregnancy? So United States Health Secretary RFK Jr. Plans to highlight the concern over paracetamol, that prenatal paracetamol exposure and autism. And the current evidence is no firm causal link is there, but studies show mixed result. It's like about the linkage between autism and the use of paracetamol. And scientific finding, if you look at the scientific finding history, in Sweden in 2024, 2.5 million children, no causal link with the autism or attention deficit hyperactive disorder. In 2025 review that 46 studies and some association, but proof of causation is not there. Recommended use at lower dose, shorter the duration of use of paracetamol. At the recent European and Japanese studies, weak association likely due to the confounders or genetic environment, illness, and other medicines. The medical guidelines says that the paracetamol is first line drug for pain and fever in pregnancy. And the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, that they are unsafe during the 3rd trimester. Risk of birth defects are there if you are consuming. And it advises that the use of paracetamol only when needed under the doctor's supervision. So why it is matter? Untreated fever or pain in the pregnancy is riskier than the usage of paracetamol. Can cause birth defect, heart or abdominal wall or neural tube, and linked to prenatal birth, low birth weight or miscarriage. And after the mother's health, high blood pressure, dehydration, anxiety, depression, these things can be there. Another news, geotagging of buildings in census 2027. What do you mean by geotagging? Geotagging is the process of assigning latitude, longitude, or coordinate to a building using the geographical information system. It provides every structure a unique locational identity, geotagging of building. And in census 2024, what is new here? It's a first digital census. It opened for self-enumeration. We can give the data, and caste enumeration after 1931. Caste census is there, and geotagging of all buildings for the first time. That's why 2027 census is important. You can expect a question from UPSC prelims based on this. And the scale of excess, last census happened in 2011. There are 330.84 million houses were recorded. Now 34 lakh enumerator to be deployed, and the enumerators are enumerated to use smartphones for data collection. That's why it is first digital census. And how this geotagging will work? Conducted during the house listing operations during April to September in 2026. The enumerator visit each house listing blocks, use digital layout mapping on smartphones, and mark building coordinates and classify as residential building, non-residential building, partly residential building, or landmarks. And data collected on census houses and households. Benefit of geotagging census. Why we are doing that? What are the benefit of geotagging of building? It will provide accuracy, that precise count of house and households, efficiency, better workload management for enumerators, and transparency, avoid duplication or omission of the houses. Digital mapping replaces land drawn sketches that used earlier. Land drawn sketches, it can be replaced. And policy uses like support housing infrastructure and welfare schemes similar to Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana geo tagging. Our today's important topic, why scholars have struggled to decipher the Harappan script. Why? The core challenge is there is no bilingual or multilingual inscription. The Rosetta Stones like evidence is absent here, like Mesopotamia. And despite Harappan, Mesopotamian trade, no comparative text found, like Harappan text, there is no comparative text found in Mesopotamian, which is found in Mesopotamian, an unknown script and unknown language. Indus script fall in the hardest category, unknown script, unknown language. No reference point to aid deciphering, decipherment, and limited material evidence. Only 3,500 seals discovered with a very short text, average 5 characters, or the longest have only 26 characters. So that evidences, or material evidence are very less, and too little data to establish a grammar or syntax. So civilization itself is not fully understood, like fewer artifacts and contextual evidence compared to Mesopotamia or Egypt. There are scholars attempt their 1980s. S.R. Rao linked script to the Sanskrit or Vedic civilization. 1990s, Asko Peripola, he linked the sign to Proto-Dravidian, or like reverse principle, or fish is equal to star. That means mean in language. And Steve Farm in 2004 claimed it is not a language but symbolic markers for power or trade. That's not a language. An ongoing debate is about the Sanskritic versus Dravidian versus non-linguistic simple. So why it is matter? If you able to decipher, if you able to read the Harappan script, political and cultural implications are there. Claim over linguistic ancestry, that Sanskrit versus Dravidian, and decipherment could unlock insight into economy, society, and belief systems of Harappans. We'll get more and more evidence about Harappan's culture. That's all about the 5 important topic of today of Hi-Fi.